right ahead into the next segment, which is going to be about the Warriors facing the Kings. Now, previously in the last segment, I was a little bit uncertain of how the game would go because I favored the Kings in this matchup. However, Golden State has a history of beating the Kings, and Steph Curry usually plays well against the Kings. But in this game, the Kings ended up winning in a blowout win at home, 118-94. Light the beam, as they all say, and as everyone in the attendance was chanting, light the beam, after they ended up winning in this blowout. So, a little bit of an underwhelming performance from Curry. I don't blame him for the loss in this game. However, I did expect him to play a little bit better and to score a few more points than he did. I thought he was going to end the game with at least 35. But he ended the game with 22 points, 8 of 16 from the field. Again, not bad, just not the amount of points and production that I thought he was going to give in this game. And even with LeBron playing really, really bad, he still ended up finishing the game with more points than Steph Curry. So that's just another win for LeBron. And the fact that LeBron is still in the playoffs and the Warriors dynasty is kind of in limbo right now and still wondering whether or not they're going to be able to compete again like they've done previous years is nothing short of amazing from LeBron. But I keep making this thing about LeBron. But regardless, the Kings just played better in this matchup. There's really nothing else that needs to be said other than the fact that they just played better. And some of the Warriors players, they were a little bit lackluster in this game, and they did not provide Curry with the help that he needed and that he's used to when playing in these ridiculous playoff games. Like, playing in these playoff games, Curry, like, almost 9 times out of 10, he always has help from another star in production, and he just didn't get that in this game. So Kuminga ended the game with 16 points, 6 of 15 from the field, and the most jarring of all the performances was Klay Thompson. He ended the game going 0 for 10 from the field, 0 for 6 from 3, and couldn't get a single point. Now, this is obviously, like, if you're a Warriors fan, this was really, really bad. If you're a bettor and you took the over on Klay Thompson, this is also really, really bad, because usually we're accustomed to Klay Thompson being able to hit the important threes when the team really needs it. And the fact that they didn't have that in this game definitely hindered their performance and ultimately resulted in the Kings blowing them out. So the big question around the Warriors is if the dynasty is over. Like, is it time to break up the big three of Steph, Klay, and Draymond? That is the main topic of conversation. Steve Kerr said that he spoke for everyone when they say that the Warriors wanted him back, because even though, like, he is, which is a problem. Like, that's going to be a problem when looking at when talking about contract negotiations, because how much money are the Warriors willing to give Klay Thompson? That is going to be the ultimate question that none of us really know at the moment. He is going to be an unrestricted free agent going into free agency this summer. And the really big question is if the Golden State Warriors are going to pay him. And after this kind of performance, it might discourage them from wanting to pay him the money that he feels that he's owed, because given the fact that he's won 4 rings, given the fact that he's been a very integral piece to the Warriors and their success, it only makes sense that the Warriors would give him the amount of money that he wants, because that would just be doing right by him. But I don't really think that's going to happen. What I think is going to happen is that they suggest that he takes a pay cut, thus allowing them to increase their cap space and being able to bring in multiple other players and be able to reload that way. It's going to be a problem and it's going to be difficult, but I really put nothing past that front office in terms of lineup management, recruiting, things of that nature, I never put it past them, because it seems that every single time I think that the Warriors are just done, they end up coming back and they end up winning again. Similar to how they lost in the play-in before, and then the next year they went on and won a championship. Now, is that going to happen again? Not very likely. However, when you do have a lineup that contains Steph Curry, and Steph Curry is still playing his best basketball, anything is possible with this team. So anything is possible with a healthy Curry, and a Curry that's playing the same way that he's been playing all season. So it's really tough question to ask right now, and we're just going to have to see how free agency unfolds. Now, as for the Kings and their respective performances, Keegan Murray went off in this game, getting 32 points and 9 rebounds on 10 for 20 from the field. De'Aaron Fox also played relatively well. 24 points, was the second leading scorer for the Kings, even though he ended up taking more shots than he did scoring points, 11 for 25 from the field. It was still a pretty good performance, considering the fact that they ended up coming out with the win. Now, Sabonis, he ended the game going with 16 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists, shooting 7 of 14 from the field, and Harrison Barnes ended the game with 17 points, 5 for 11 from the field. And it's honestly pretty poetic how Harrison Barnes ended up playing really, really well against the Warriors, his former team, and ended up shutting them down, effectively putting an end to the Warriors dynasty for now, because, again, we have no idea how things are going to play out in the offseason, or how things are going to play out in free agency. So, for now, the Warriors dynasty is over, and the Kings move on to play the Pelicans in their next matchup as they fight for the 8th seed. Now, they somewhat have an advantage when going into this matchup, because the Pelicans are most likely going to be without Zion Williamson. And when you take that into account, that is a huge factor of the game. Zion is extremely valuable to the Pelicans, and the impact that he showed against the Warriors cannot be denied. And his 40 points and 11 rebound game was nothing short of amazing. And the fact that the Pelicans won't have that going into this matchup against the Kings is a serious problem. I mentioned previously in other podcasts how the Kings, the matchups that they had, they were really good against the Pelicans, but the Pelicans, they also had relatively good matchups with Zion going head-to-head against Sabonis. That is just a good matchup. Now that they don't have Zion, I wonder who is going to really be able to stop Sabonis, or to slow down Sabonis, or match his production. And it's going to be a lot more pressure on C.J. McCollum to perform against the Kings, and Brandon Ingram to also perform against the Kings. And who do I think would win in that matchup? I think the Kings have the best shot in winning. Considering how they won this game in a blowout, they did play at home, which ultimately gives them an advantage. However, they blew out the Warriors, and the Warriors, when they're on, they're on. They just weren't on in this game. So, assuming that the Pelicans play how they played against the Lakers, I don't really see the Kings losing a game against that team, especially without Zion, because Zion, again, like I said, very integral piece to this team, and now they probably won't even have that. And not only that, I also think that the Kings, they have the similar playoff experience as the Thunder. And another thing going into this previous game, they weren't really favored to beat the Warriors, and they weren't really it was sort of a hump that they needed to get over, if that makes sense. And so there might have been a little bit more emotion in this game. They might have taken it personally, like how I said previously. And this was the largest win against the Warriors since February 2006 for the Kings, with where they ended up beating them by 25 points. So obviously, like there was like some sort of emotion in this game, and it was like, you know, they finally got over the hump and beating the Warriors after their embarrassing loss at home in the playoffs of last year. So it's a little bit odd not seeing Curry in the playoffs again, but regardless, I mean, they ended up getting the win, and do they have enough left in the tank to be able to win against the Pelicans is going to be like the ultimate question. Now, I really genuinely think that the Kings, they have the best chances of winning in this matchup, and assuming that CJ doesn't really play that well, even more so of a chance. Now, they will play the Thunder. Now, between the two teams, like the Pelicans and the Kings, I think the Kings have a better chance in beating the Thunder, but I don't think that the Thunder are going to lose to either of those teams, simply because their playoff experience is roughly the same. And therefore, like, it's really going to be dependent on how the Thunder are able to handle the pressure of the playoffs, because being the youngest team in the NBA to ever make the 1 seed and make the playoffs, it's really like there's obviously going to be a lot of nerves that some of these players won't know how to handle, because they've never been in that kind of situation before. Now, obviously, they could handle it great in their first playoff matchup, and I think the fact that they don't have to play the Lakers or the Warriors just ultimately boosts their confidence and will allow the Thunder to play very well in the postseason matched up against either of those teams. So I think after this play-in game, their postseason run ends. Regardless of which team makes it out, I think their postseason run ends in the first round, which is a little bit unfortunate because they worked so hard to finally get over that hump only to lose in the first round. But I really don't see the Thunder losing to either of these teams. I thought the Warriors and the Lakers had a bit of a better chance. Specifically, the Lakers had a much better chance of beating the Thunder in the first round due to all their experience and playoff experience. But now that that's not happening, I kind of see the Thunder being able to make it past the first round and being able to win a playoff series, whereas previously I was unsure if they were going to win a playoff series. So that's basically all the matchups that happen in the Western Conference. So now we're just waiting on the Kings to play, and we're also waiting on the Eastern Conference, which starts tonight. And speaking of which, let me just see. Yeah, I feel like we can go right ahead and go into the third segment where I talk about the next play-in matchups. And the next play-in matchups are going to be the Eastern Conference playoff matchups. And I'll give my opinions on what teams I think are going to make it out, what to expect from them, things of that nature. So I will be right back after this short break.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.